Good evening and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to each and every one of you to Temple Avat Shalom, for those in the sanctuary and for those of you tuning in with the stream at home. So glad that you've joined us. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. I'm joined on the bima with our cantorial soloist, Allison Rosoff, and Tim Berneman on the keys below. We have a great tech crew out back helping out with the stream and the visual prayer book. If you have the Siddur before you, we'll turn to page 10. There you'll find the words to Yedid Nefesh, Heart's Delight, Source of Mercy, Draw Your Servant into Your Arms. You'll also find the text on the screen before you. Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Mishochatecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha. Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Mishochatecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha. Yarutzatecha, Yemoaya, Ishakabeh, El Muladarecha, Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Mishochatecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha. We'll continue by singing Debbie Friedman's Light These Lights before moving to the candle blessing on page 2.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Now we'll light the Shabbos candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
so to you, God, who hallows us with mitzvot, sacred obligations, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. And on the theme of light and nerot, candles, I'd like to share a beautiful poem by the Israeli poet Zelda, whose full name was Zelda Schneerson Mishkovsky, lived from 1914 to 1984, and it's called Light a Candle. Light a candle, drink wine. Softly the Sabbath has plucked the sinking sun. Slowly the Sabbath descends, the rose of heaven in her hand. How can the Sabbath plant a huge and shining flower in a blind and narrow heart? How can the Sabbath plant the bud of angels in a heart of raving flesh? Can the rose of immortality grow in a generation enslaved to destruction, a generation enslaved to death? Light a candle, drink wine. Slowly the Sabbath descends, in her hand the flower, and in her hand the sinking sun. We'll move now to the words of Shalom Aleichem, peace be to you, messengers of the Most High, calling to mind the twin angels who are said to join us for the 24 hours of Shabbat. You'll find the prayer on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mo'echem L'Shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon. Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon. Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We're going to make our way to the next part of our service, Shema and its blessings, by chanting the readers or half Kaddish on 26.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shmei Rabbah B'yamad yivrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayed kol Beit Yisrael Bagala bagala u'v'zman kariv v'imaru amen Yishmei Rabbah mivorach Le'olam u'almei amaya Yitbarach, Yitbarach V'yishabach, V'yipa'ar, V'yiromam, V'yitnasei V'yithadar, V'yitale, V'yitalal Shemei dekudesha brichu Le'elam minko berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damin Rabbi Amma V'imaru Amen.
Rise now for the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu on 28.
La
continue now on 31, a prayer for the evening, Ma'ariv Aravim. Feel free to join me. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And on 33 words of love, Ahava. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Let's open up our eyes before singing the Shema. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes. Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malachuto Le'olam Vaed. Feel free to be seated. After singing Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one, we'll continue chanting the Shema, the words of You Shall Love, on page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uktavtam amezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'tem kedoshim le'loechem. Ani Adonai Eloheim, Asher Hotzeiti Etchem, Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot Lachem Elohim, Ani Adonai Eloheim. Before our song of freedom, Mi Chamocha, who is like you? Let's read together on 39 words of truth and faith, emet ve'emunah. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, go'alo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai ga'al Yisrael. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Let's turn now to the words of Hashkivenu, page 42, this arrangement by Beth Stiles, Guide My Steps.
Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps, and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps, and guide my steps, and guide my steps. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom. V'ha'amideinu Shomereinu L'chaim, chaim. V'ha'amideinu Shomereinu L'chaim. Shalom Hashivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom Oh, guide my steps. Oh, guide my steps. Oh, guide my steps.
Continuing with the Chatimah, the closing part of the prayer. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose Sukkot Shlomecha, shelter of peace, is spread over us, Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei Sukkot Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. And a song for Shabbat, Vishamru b'nei Israel, people of Israel shall observe Shabbat, is found on page 44.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot b'yom Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. B'nei Reuven b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat v'nafash, Shabbat v'nafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat lidorotam b'rit olam.
Continue now with the words of our standing prayer, the Tefillah, which begins on page 46 and continues on even pages. Let's rise for these blessings, thanking God for the generations before us, for strength and holiness.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor, v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imot, U'mevir Ula Livnei Vneihem, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחלל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומטמיע ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעלוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Feel free to be seated. We'll move on to the intermediate blessings. First, for the holiness of Shabbat on page 55, Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat, and for Avodah, worship or spoken prayer, Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechinato Litzion, and for things we're thankful for, we recite the Hoda'ah, God of goodness. Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha Ulcha Na'eh Lechodot. And now for words of peace, Shalom Rav. It's found on page 60. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever. For you're the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Now is our time for the meditations of your heart and silent prayer, and Allison and Tim will be singing Ruach Elohim, Spirit of God. It's found on the second page of the Shabbat booklet for those of you in person, or right on the screen before you.
Ruach Elohim, may God's Spirit be with you. Ruach Elohim, keep you safe from harm. May the love of God be your shelter from every storm. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Ruach Elohim, may God bless you and keep you, bring you to the light and safe from harm. May the love of friends be your shelter from every storm. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yikuneka, Yisa
beautiful setting of Ruach Elohim, based on the passage in Numbers, the priestly blessing in Numbers chapter 22. We'll turn now to words of healing and strength. As we think of the following individuals for prayers of health and well-being, we of course think of all those who are feeling the ill effects of COVID and hope and pray for their safety and health, along with the following individuals in our community and beyond, who we remember this evening: Lily Blackwell, Herb Bloom, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Matthew Deinhardt, Edie Eckber, Yona Feinstein, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Myra Friedman, Sandra Freifeld, Andrew Guerin, Mark Gittimer, Leah Gottlieb, Myron Graff, Jody Kaplan, Jeff Karp, Arthur Maller, Aaron Mailer, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Marcia Mollet, Bella Uziel, Bob Rosen, Stephanie Ross, Mickey Siegel, Sue Schoenbaum, Betty Sharp, Francine Spector, Joel Spector, Jeff Stark, Carrie Taylor, Bob Wallerstein, Helene Wallerstein, and Michael Wallerstein. If there are any names to add here in person or...
My father, George Stark. Oh,
yeah.
מקור הברכה למותנו. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
One of Mel Brooks' funniest roles in film is when he played Moses in History of the World Part 1. In this 1981 comedy classic, written by Mel himself, Moses comes down from Mount Sinai in his flowing robe with shockingly white hair, and in his hands there were not 2 but 3 stone tablets containing God's laws, the mitzvot, or commandments. After shimmying through a narrow break in the rocks, he begins to speak. Lord, I shall give these laws unto thy people. Hear me, oh, hear me. All pay heed. The Lord Jehovah, has given unto you these 10 commandments. Of course, the delay between 15 and the oys, because Moses dropped the 1 tablet that was in his right hand. And in the process, 5 original commandments were lost to posterity, shattered into pieces when it hit the ground below. It's a short scene, just about 24 seconds long, but it's wickedly funny. And I was watching it recently because I planned to show the clip to our monthly online Torah study, which I did. Now, in the film, you can only see this third tablet for a few moments, just a couple seconds. But it's enough to see that the writing itself is Hebrew. So I wondered, does this Hebrew actually mean anything, or is it just gobbledygook? Well, as it turns out, the Hebrew is legit, grammatically correct, and the 5 phrases actually mean something. So here they are, the long-lost commandments according to Mel Brooks, Numbers 11 through 15, different from the real 11 through 15 we have today, all of which begin with the Hebrew letter Lo, Lamed Aleph, meaning no. Number 11, Lo ta'avor, you shall not pass, which, if anything, reminds me of my second grade teacher at the end of school year after analyzing my penmanship for the year. Number 12 is a little bit trickier because there aren't any vowels in the Torah. It can be read in one of 2 ways. The first is lo tatzchik, you shall not make people laugh, or if you prefer, it says lo titzchak, which means you shall not laugh. Either way, the commandment is pretty funny considering the source. Number 13 is lo tikneh, you shall not buy. I'll just leave that one alone. Number 14 is lo talunu, which means you shall not stay. Probably the theme song for the Israelites wandering through the desert, because in their 40 years, they camped out in no less than 42 different locations. So they are always on the move. And finally, number 15, lo tishaber, you shall not break. Now this one, considering Moses' epic butterfingers, is the best one of all. It's the irony of all ironies. I call these commandments to your attention because tonight, in the annual reading of Torah, we find ourselves in the midst of the last 2 parshiot, the last 2 Torah weekly readings in the book of Exodus, Vayachel and Pikudei, which means assembly and records. Here we learn about what actually happens to the tablets, which were created on, of course, 2 different occasions. The first time after Moses came down the mountain, the Israelites, we know, were up to no good. God told them angrily, look at what your people are doing. You need to go down and handle it yourself. When Moses saw the Israelites dancing with the golden calf, he lost it and shattered the tablets. Yet the second time he descended with a new set 40 days later, the tablets remained intact. At this point in the story, the creation of the Mishkan or tabernacle was complete. And we learn that Moses took the tablets, which in Hebrew are called edut, which can also mean witness, and placed them in the ark. Sounds simple enough, but it wasn't meant to be. Because many hundreds of years later, the sages in the Talmud suggested a new wording of the text in a commentary. And in this translation, found in a section called brachot, or blessings, we learn about this translation. Moses placed the whole tablets and the broken tablets side by side in the ark, meaning both sets of tablets, the shattered and the whole. It's a totally different read. So what's the message? And what are we supposed to learn? It's certainly more than just watching Moses, our greatest prophet, leader of the Israelites, get angry and smash something. And it's more than just learning about a time when the Israelites really crossed a line. Rather, it's that the broken tablets are actually carried by the people throughout their journey in the desert. They were never thrown away. and they remain an important part of the story. Brokenness, says Rabbi Yaffa Epstein, is not something to shy away from or to hide. Mistakes are normal. That's what it means to be human. We were never meant to be perfect, and that was never the expectation. Like many of you, I've been reading with interest the recent interview last Sunday that Oprah Winfrey had with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, also known as Harry and Meghan. Now, I didn't watch it, but I was moved when I read Meghan's testimony and her experiences, a story that in many ways reveals the parallels between Markle and Princess Diana. Now, I'm not thinking about comparisons that are superficial in nature, like how they look or how they dressed. Rather, I'm thinking about the deeper narrative going on here. Firstly, that Diana and Meghan attracted global admiration for their honesty. Both of these women suffered relentless attacks by the British media. And both of these women expressed how living the life of a royal could sometimes be suffocating. Most recently, Meghan revealed that a member of the royal family expressed concern about the skin color of Harry and Meghan's son even before he was born, which calls to mind the issues of racism that still pervade American society. And secondly, both women have shared about their struggles with mental health and depression. Diana spoke about this, I remember, in 1995 when she had an interview with Martin Bashir. And this past Sunday, Meghan spoke about this with Oprah. It's so important to normalize these feelings, especially in a year when we're in the midst of a pandemic of mental illness along with physical illness, when it's become abundantly clear that the isolation that many people are experiencing due to social distancing for good reason has at times led to depression. The message I receive, having now heard both of these courageous women, is this: it's healthy to share how we're feeling, and it's very good to ask for help when we need it, because no one is perfect. Even the Torah teaches us that we should always strive to become our best selves. We should strive to find comfort in the support of those we love, family and friends, and we should lean on our community when we need a helping hand. As the late Leonard Cohen taught us, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. The image of the shattered tablets and the whole tablets housed together in the ark is striking and meaningful. It reminds us that brokenness and wholeness coexist in our lives, side by side. All that, even as we strive to experience a sense of shalom or wholeness, we need to understand that at times we'll definitely fall short of this goal. If the Israelites, and by extension each of us, only kept tablets that were intact, we might expect wholeness every single moment. And we might think that life will always demand perfection, which is, of course, unrealistic. Ultimately, our sages are teaching us that keeping both sets of tablets in the ark tells us that the broken coexist with the whole, that illness can coexist with healing, that challenges can coexist with opportunities, and that darkness can coexist with light. This is very evident in many Jewish holidays and rituals. At the end of a Jewish wedding, we break a glass in joy, which at the same time reminds us that others in the world still feel broken. We celebrate the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, while asking forgiveness simultaneously for times that we miss the mark. And on Passover, which we'll celebrate in just a couple of weeks, we rejoice in our liberation, our freedom, the exodus from Egypt, while dabbing drops of wine or grape juice on our plate to remember the price of our freedom, that Egyptian lives were lost. In his book, Everything is Illuminated, the writer Jonathan Safran Foer says Jews have 6 senses. Jews have touch, taste, sight, smell, hearing, and memory. We are a people who remember. We hold on to stories because they're special, and we share them to illuminate what needs to be said, and needs to be said aloud, like the Duchess Meghan and Princess Diana did, for the sake of ourselves and for the sake of others. In hindsight, Mel Brooks didn't get everything right in his film. There probably wasn't a 3rd stone tablet that Moses schlepped down and dropped, along with their extra 5 mitzvot or commandments. A commandment that says, "You shall not laugh," I mean, really, that is just not in our wheelhouse. But it's such a funny way to introduce such an epic story to an audience that goes far beyond the Jewish audience. And that, my friends, is certainly something that can bring us joy. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue on page 282. You'll find the words of Elenu also on the screen before you. Please rise as the ark is opened.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום
to be seated. And we'll continue our service now by turning to the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. As we think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, as we remember Evelyn Kornfeld, mother of Stephen Kornfeld, Riva Sorkers, mother of Mark Sorkers, Dennis Schneider, husband of Barbara Schneider, Brian Mahardy, friend of Bill Ross, Mildred Fetterman Plotnick, mother of Francine Spector, Erwin Kern, uncle of Irene Lipensky and Susan Satinoff, Armando R. Caballero, father of Luz Himmelhock, Robert Allen, father of Deborah Allen, Clayton Lee Van Ness, husband of Norma Bloomberg, Jackie Salenfriend, friend of Janet Edelman, Martin Henry Young, brother of Elaine Hendricks, and Abraham Koenigsberg, uncle of Stephen Koenigsberg. We, of course, think on the Shabbat of all those families whose lives have been affected by the death of a loved one due to the pandemic. And we mark the yahrzeit, the anniversary of passing of our loved ones. as we remember Louis Baker, Onelia Benitez, Sylvia Fischelo, Marvin Goldman, Hattie Hayden, Bryce Herbert, Arnold Lehrer, Charlotte Lewis, Leon Mann, Helen Marco, Violet Martin, Marianne Messina, Monroe Pincus, Mrs. Sylvia Rosoff, Arlene Rosenblatt, Neil Edward Rothschild, Ida Ruthberg, Raymond Schleier, Faye Leah Sokoloff, and Jeannie Steinhorn. Are there any other names to add for Yahrzeit anniversary?
My grandmother, Barbara Stark.
We say Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people continue to be a blessing in our lives as we rise together in support of all those who mourn, reading the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divrach Hirutei v'amlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam u'lamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world as we say, amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Shabbat Kiddush, blessing over the fruit of the vine. You'll find the text of the blessing on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pori hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ava uvratzon hinchilanu, zichara lema'aseh b'reishit, ki hu yom tehillah, l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, yotanu kidasha, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, e'ava uratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. Say l'chaim, to life. Motzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together. our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. We have a few announcements this evening. Join us for services next Friday as we honor International Water Day. We'll hear from Nermeen Rubin, founder of Water for Mercy. I was able to have a nice lunch with her, and she told us about her organization, as well as her daughter Samantha, as they discuss their initiative of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world in Africa, by tackling the global water crisis one village at a time. On Monday, March 22nd, Sisterhood will host a Haroset Around the World live stream featuring edible mortar, that's kind of what it is, from Syria, Morocco, and a twist on an Ashkenazic recipe. On March 25th at 11 o'clock, we'll begin our next three-part adult ed live stream on the topic of Musar, Jewish spiritual practice and character traits. That same evening, the Sisterhood will have a Zoom spring education event featuring the Florida-Israel Business Accelerator with two great speakers. And our virtual second night Passover Seder will take place on Sunday, March 28th. We've got our 15 people for in-person, so everyone else is going to be watching virtually. Please contact the office. No, don't contact the office because we're at our 15 people. Our virtual Haggadah will be seen on the split screen. It's by Alan Yaffe, and it's called Sharing the Journey. It's really a great Haggadah with some beautiful artwork by Mark Podol. And our closing song is taken from Pirkei Avot, another text from the sages, which means ethics of our ancestors. It's on 341, and it's called Lo Alecha. It's not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. I've got a nice plaque with this great teaching in my office. Lo Alecha. Lo Alecha Machalitol, Lo Alecha Ligmor, Lo Alecha Machalitol, Lo Alecha Ligmor, Velo Ata Tehori Leimatel Mimena, Velo Ata Ben-Hori, Velo Ata Ben-Hori Leimatel Mimena, Velo Ata Ben-Hori. Lo Alecha Machalitol, Lo Alecha Ligmor, Lo Alecha Machalitol, Lo Alecha Ligmor, Velo Ata Ben-Hori Leivatel Mimena, Velo Ata Ben-Hori, Velo Ata Ben-Hori Leivatel Mimena, Velo Ata Ben-Hori. And as we've been ending our services for many months, a prayer for our health and well-being, for the importance of protecting our own health and protecting those around us. Our bracha, our blessing for wearing a mask. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat ha-nefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation of saving lives. Thank you so much for joining us. To our musical team, thank you, and our tech crew behind. I'll see you next Friday. Thanks for joining us. Shabbat Shalom.
The Ruach Elohim is gorgeous. Really? Oh, thank you. It's just so lovely, guide my steps. That's just.